My name is Lucas Melton. I own Sandhills Taxidermy in Jefferson, South Carolina. So I got into taxidermy, it was 2022, 2023. I've always been interested in it, and I never really took it upon myself to try to do it. And I started doing it for myself, and my wife shot a buck, so I started doing some of hers, and it kind of started taking off. And I started doing it for friends, and then they said I was doing good, so I started doing it for customers, and it just took off. The first animal I ever mounted was my wife's whitetail, and it turned out horrible. My measurements were all off. Even the back of the neck, couldn't sew it up all the way. It was so I keep it just so I can see where I've come from, but I don't let many people see that one. She loved it. She loved it. She was real happy with it, and from a distance it looks good, but I hate looking at it now. So I kind of started on YouTube, just looking up how to mount a squirrel, just anything I could find, and eventually found deer, started really just watching tons and tons and tons of videos on how to mount, how to preserve, how to tan, how to detail work, and it just practice and practice and practice and failure, tons of failure. So I realized this would become a business probably my first year, honestly. I was working at the hospital. Honestly, had a pretty good job, good benefits, good everything. And this just started, I was finding myself leaving work, coming home and doing this until it was time to go to bed and even later. And me and my wife talked and we prayed, and this just decided to jump in and do it for real, give it 100%, and it's paid off so far. So the services I offer are whitetails mainly. I've started doing some fish. I do full body bobcats. I've done some coyotes. I've done rattlesnake skins. Really, just about everything. I'm starting to dip my toes in like ducks, because that's a little more intricate, but I'm kind of all around, but I'm mainly on whitetails and mammals mainly. So what separates a good mount from a great one is just the detail and the musculature and the anatomy. You can have a deer mount that looks good on a wall at a distance, but really once you get up close, that's when you start noticing the little intricacies. The ears might be too small, too spaced out, eyes not level. So you've got to really study and get your anatomy right for a mount to be a good, solid mount. So far for me, the most challenging mount, I'd say, probably the smaller animals, squirrels. It's just on a deer, you slip a little bit, it's fine. They got a lot of fat on them. A squirrel or a duck is immediate hole. You have no room to err on those kind of animals. So my favorite species is probably whitetail to mount. I really like a wall pedestal pose, or just something to show off more of the musculature and the kind of features of the animal other than just a head forward looking pose. So one mistake hunters make that can ruin a mount would be cutting too far up on the brisket. You can never bring a taxidermist too much skin or too much hide. You can bring the back strap, everything if you want. We will cut where it needs to be cut, because sometimes, like I said, with a pedestal, if you want a pedestal, we need more skin to show the kind of curves and the form. But yeah, I would say cutting too far up on the brisket. Just cut halfway down if you got to. Just that'll work out perfectly for a taxidermist. So field care for a quality mount is probably the most important, because bacteria, as soon as the animal dies, bacteria starts. So you have got to, like, you can take your pictures, you can show your buddies and all, but it really, the faster you get it to a freezer or cut up and to a taxidermist, the better, because once the bacteria starts and it attacks the hair follicles, you get what's called slippage, where it's like a bald spot in the animal. And once that starts, there's nothing, like it's wasted pretty much. So it's the faster you get it to a taxidermist, and I'd say dragging an animal through the woods, hooking it to a four-wheeler, that just rips all the hair off once it gets in the tanning process. The most memorable would probably be the bobcat I've just recently finished. It was my first I've done a few smaller cats, but nothing quite like a full body bobcat. And I like it. It really kind of lets you free your artistic side. There's more detail, there's more expressions in a cat's face than in a deer's face. So I really enjoyed that. Yeah, so my first few mounts that I did for myself, trying to figure everything out, horrible. I didn't have my pickle right. That's what tans the hide and gets, all the bacteria out of it. I didn't have that right, so I opened it up and it was just a big ball of rotten skin there. My wife's mount, couldn't sew up the neck of it. It's just, you learn from experience and you learn from mistakes. That's what it is. So as soon as you drop the deer off, I like to go ahead and skin it because the skin's pliable, it's a fresh kill. Go ahead and get the skull out, the antlers out, and flesh down, get all the red meat off of it. Then you'll throw it in a pickle. That's the chemicals that brings down the pH to where bacteria can't survive in it, there's salt in it. Leave it in there for a few days, that plumps the skin up, and then we put it on the flesher machine and it sheds the skin down to probably a quarter of how thick it is. And then you put the tan on it, let it sit overnight, and then it'd be ready to mount probably the next morning after you get the measurements and everything and order the form. Measure the form, order the form, form gets here, test fit it, put the skin on with no glue, no anything, make sure everything's where it should be. And then after that, put the antlers on, glue, eyes, ear liners, position everything. And then you got to tuck the skin, make sure everything's where it should be, put pins, where areas might shift. And then you'll put a bag on it and basically just babysit it for a little bit. Make sure nothing moves, make sure the glue hardens before the skin does. And you gotta just keep babysitting it. Just make sure nothing moves. If it does, you push it back where it should be and the glue takes over, and then let it dry. And then once it dries, we will take it out, do the finishing touches, epoxy around the eyes, paint on the nose, texture on the nose. And then after that, let the paint dry and it's ready to go home. So the time it takes to get a mount is really determining on early season, late season. If the taxidermist has a rollover from the mount the year before, I try a year is the maximum I should have any of their animals. Early season, you'll get it back fairly quickly because you're going to be first on the list for the year. You're going to be the first order that's put in at the forms. You're going to be everything. Once, October, November, December, there's going to be quite a few people ahead of you. You're going to have to work down the list. But for me personally, I try a year at maximum. anything under a year, I try my best to do earlier than a year. So for whitetail, you can do full body mount. We do shoulder mounts, skull mounts, or European mounts as they're called. You can do just the back hide if you want. Really, with whitetails, you can about do anything. You can do the velvet treatment if you want them to keep the velvet or the trash, like that they can have hanging off of them. Yeah, we try to do everything you can for a whitetail. So for mounts, it can range from my squirrels. I'm normally in the $300 to $400 range, and it can go for a life-size bobcat or coyote. It can be $1,400 to $1,800 possibly. It just depends. Normally with whitetail, just a standard shoulder mount, I'm in the $550 to $600 area range, depending on factors like the price of forms, price of eyes, that kind of stuff. But I try to be honest. So the first thing I would say for a taxidermist is look at their Facebook or their pictures that they've posted, get an idea of what kind of work you're gonna be getting into. And honestly, word of mouth, just ask around, go to the Bass Pro nearby or go any kind of place and just, hey, you know any good taxidermists? And people are real, they'll tell you the bad ones fast before they'll tell you the good ones. They'll tell you the bad ones really fast. I'd say what would surprise most people about taxidermy is it's not that messy. It's not that gory after the first step. It's really, you're basically working with leather once you get it in the pickle. There's no smells really once you get to that point. It's kind of just it's a clean job after you do the skinning. There's no really mess that's with it. Hunters who want a great mount, it would go back to get it to your taxidermist fast. I can't stress that enough. The speed that you get it to the taxidermist or to a freezer is the better mount. The skin's gonna be better. It's gonna be easier to work with. And just have an idea in mind of what kind of mount you're wanting. There's literally thousands of options. And even if there's not an option, us as taxidermists, we can alter the form to basically it's just foam. You can basically do whatever we want it to. So just have an idea, and if not, tell your taxidermist, hey, I'm gonna look online, get a few ideas, and I'll text you sometime what kind of form or positioning I'm wanting. So if you shoot a deer late at night and you aren't able to get it to a taxidermist till the next day, I'd say get it to a processor, get them to quarter it out or quarter it out yourself. But the main thing is a freezer. Put it in a bag, put it in the freezer. I don't recommend ice because ice melts and then water is where the bacteria will thrive from. But for the most part, just freezer. That's especially early season, once it's 100 degrees outside, it does not take long at all for that bacteria to start. It doesn't really get cold enough around here for people to leave it outside, really. But I'd say freezer is by far the most important thing. Is just find a freezer, borrow one, a buddy's, just get it in a freezer as fast as you can. To bring the mount to us or to your house or wherever, I would just say just have it in a good contractor trash bag. Some people double bag them. Just keeping it dry and keeping it cold is the most important factor when it comes to preserving the skin and preserving the hair. But yeah, I've had people just drag the bloody deer in the shop, and I've had them in the bag. We prefer the bag. It's less messy, but it's whichever's easiest for the hunter, I guess. If you're on the fence about getting a deer mounted, I'd say it's more about the memory. If there's a good story with your buck, if there's your first buck with your child, your first buck with your wife, I always lean towards getting it mounted, which, I mean, I am the taxidermist, but I lean towards getting it mounted just because it preserves that buck as you shot it is how you will see it forever. It's on your wall, it'll be there forever, as the way you shot it. I like skull mounts. I love a clean, white looking skull mount, but to me personally, a nice shoulder mount, exactly how the deer was in the wild when you shot it is really hard to beat. Honestly, have your license information with you, honestly, because it's to protect the hunter, but it's also to protect the taxidermist, because the DNR can do surprise rounds and come and ask to look at our logbooks. And it's not that we want to be difficult and say, no, you need to get your tag, but it's to protect you from your deer getting confiscated, and it's to protect us from any fines or issues we might face, just to have all our paperwork, all our stars lined up, just so that everything's how it should be legally. Yeah, we keep the confirmation number. They like us to keep the license number, I believe is the last I read. But mostly it's that tag number. If you got your tag number, just take a picture of it at the processor if it's left over there, and we'll put the information in the book. Shot placement can make your taxidermist job a lot harder. There's a lot of people who are fans of neck shots, and I've even had a few head shots for antlered deer that they want mounted, and it's possible to fix, but it is a lot of work because that is the main, when you look at a mount, you're seeing the face, you're seeing the neck. So if you can keep it to the vitals, that's an area that either isn't showing or will be hidden. But I tell people, if it's a deer that you definitely know you want to get mounted, avoid anything that would be seen on a wall mount. Biggest buck, it was actually my cousin's. My wife's cousin, he shot it this year. I didn't get a measurement on it, but I can provide the photo, but it was a good buck. 200 pound, at least 12. I'll have to pull up the photo, but it was a good buck. It was real good. My dream animal to mount, I'd really like to do like a Rocky Mountain elk or something. To me, those are the most beautiful animals. Just something that, like an elk or a mountain goat, just something that's really just honestly big, just those big animals that they have a lot of detail, even though they're so big. They do have a lot of detail in them. Yep, and we are accepting new customers this year. We're hoping that this year will be even better than last year, and last year really surprised me and my whole family. So I'm ready. We're excited. Oh, I'm energy drinks all day long. So much my wife gets mad at me. As a hunter, I would rather do the rut. So to find more information or to get in touch with me, I have a Facebook page, Sandhills Taxidermy. Also my phone number, 843-680-3371. Send me a text or a Facebook message, and I'll be glad to answer any questions or do anything for them.